Hello and welcome to another edition of Economic Outlook. I'm your host, Phil D'Amico. It can be argued that a great educational career starts at the kindergarten level. Today we highlight a new kindergarten software application that helps both kindergarten teachers and students learn more effectively and efficiently. Kindergarten learning on the next Economic Outlook. I'm Phil D'Amico. Whether we're exploring Michiana's business environment, our community at large, or covering the region's complex economy, Economic Outlook is where we explore the economy, education, manufacturing, and new business models. My job is to go beyond the numbers and corporate analysis as we invite some of the best experts to answer the hard questions that face our economy. This is Economic Outlook. Today, nearly all children attend a public or private kindergarten before the first grade. As kindergarten enrollments have grown, so too has the range of backgrounds and experience that children bring to these programs. Kindergarten programs and initiatives have also changed and often stress academic skills and technologies that used to be reserved for older children. Today we highlight an interactive and innovative software program called Educational Software for Guiding Instruction, or ESGI, that will help both kindergarten students and teachers learn more effectively and efficiently, as well as provide instant data on their learning experiences. The software automates one-on-one assessments so teachers can give them faster and print usable reports immediately. To discuss this creative, innovative software program, we invite to the studio Amish Shah, President and CEO, ChemCrest and business partner for ESGI Software, Greg Gorman, kindergarten teacher and founder of ESGI Software, Melinda Cook, Chief Business Development Officer, and Brian Kubicki, General Counsel at Gibson Insurance and a member of the St. Joseph County Chamber of Commerce Education Subcommittee. Welcome to all of you. It's great to have all of you. Where was this when I was going to kindergarten, by the way? I always got doesn't play well with others, so this would have been very instrumental. You know, it's interesting, Amish, in doing some research, it says on average, states will spend about $8 billion a year on kindergarten programs, or roughly 3,900 students all across America per year. Obviously, early literacy, very critical to the future, basically.
Yeah, and let me just kind of define, literacy is important. Sure. We all know that literacy is important, but when we start to say early literacy, literacy is starting at a much earlier age. Me as someone with small children, you know, I'm already trying to teach my 2-year-old how to read and how to recognize letters. Essentially, what we're looking at is early literacy is when the kid starts their educational journey.
Sure.
And so the importance of making sure they've got all the right fundamental tools so they're not left behind, you know, starting in kindergarten, I think is essentially important.
Yeah, absolutely. And Greg, you're a teacher, former teacher, kindergarten teacher. You know, it's interesting. I can't remember what I had for lunch yesterday, but I remember Miss Webster was my kindergarten teacher. So, but how did this come about? What did you see, basically, either from the student side of thing, or the parent side of thing, or even from the teachers?
Literacy obviously is one of the most important parts of kindergarten. It's been referred to as the tide that rises all ships. Math, science, social studies, all the subjects. Literacy is the foundation. And so this really started because I didn't have enough data. I was collecting data on paper, check marking everything. I had 5,000 check marks, and that was my data. And so and I spent 3-4 weeks collecting that data. And so created ESGI just to collect the data faster and be able to use it to guide my instruction, hence the name Educational Software for Guiding Instruction.
Yeah, and you're the Chief Development Officer here, Business Development Officer. What has been the reaction from everybody that you've had to talk to on this product?
It's very interesting. Teachers, and especially kindergarten teachers, are not necessarily that technology savvy, many of them who've been in the classroom for several years. However, once they see the program, they are very excited. They can't wait to use it. They sign up for trials and automatically begin scheming as to how they're going to get their principal to buy it for them, right, so that they're assured to have that tool going forward.
Yeah, and from a community standpoint, you know, it's interesting, Governor Pence, this is high on his agenda, as well as we talked about the money that's going, every state's dedicating to this. Really important part from the the rest of your K-12 education, I would think.
Absolutely. I mean, I think one of the interesting things I've always thought about schools is, you know, experts tell us children do their most developing from birth to age 5, and then we plop them in schools and expect schools to work wonders with them. And I think one of the great things about a program like this is it targets kind of individual needs and should help teachers move at appropriate pacing for the students in there. And once you have that foundation or the tide that's going to lift everybody, now it allows you to really kind of go out and learn. It improves and gets children excited as far as self-esteem, and they see that they can actually learn things and do things. And from that point forward, you're really moving forward and actually making ground instead of just trying to make up ground.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. You know, I kind of half joked about where were you guys when I went to kindergarten, but it has changed. Technology has changed the way students, youth, kids learn. I would think this would be very interactive, and a child would love doing this because it's technology. Kids love technology.
Well, you know, anymore, a 5-year-old can work their way around an iPad.
Sure.
They're used to seeing imagery on a computer or an iPad. So they're growing up with this technology.
Right.
Why not assess them with something that's more dynamic than a flat piece of paper?
Right, absolutely. And give us an idea, Greg, how it actually works. So what should we expect?
The teacher will sit down with the student just like they've always done, and that's one of the nice things is that they're not really doing anything differently. They're still collecting the data that they need to collect. It's just a lot faster with usable reports after. So student sits next to the teacher. Letters or words or shapes or whatever you're assessing comes up on the screen. The teacher's marking it off on the screen. When you're finished, you have a parent letter for the parents. They know what to work on at home. You have an item analysis, so you know which items in the class were most missed, where to focus. I've even customized my environment. I put the least known items on the door, the classroom, and everyone says them before we go out to recess. So I wouldn't have been able to get that data to be able to do these types of things without a program like ESGI.
The one-on-one, I think, is really important here. I think the student-to-teacher one-on-one interaction and then the immediate results, I think that's probably the key here.
It is. It's the transparency to real-time data that teachers have not had before that makes them all converts immediately. They see it instantly. And there are so many solutions, as Amish said. Kids are tech savvy, but they're not at a point where they can self-assess at 5 years of age. You sit a child down on an iPad and expect him to go through 20 questions, or they're going to have a blast, and they may not, their self-assessing doesn't accurately reflect it. So I believe that teachers always are going to need that one-on-one experience, not only for the validity of the outcome of the data, but also because they want to know individually where each student is at that level.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting here, the teacher aspect, now they're engaged in the student. I think that you've done a lot of work in our community throughout. I think that's been a challenge for specifically urban settings, but having that one-on-one I think is critical, and it gives the teacher a chance to get involved.
Absolutely. I think that one of the things you find is our society becomes stratified in many different ways. I mean, our shared experiences these days on television are the Super Bowl. That's about it.
Yeah.
And so you got kids, people coming from lots of different backgrounds, lots of different learning styles, and that one-on-one experience really allows teachers to kind of dig in and do their jobs. And the other pressure that is coming on teachers these days, which hasn't been the case 30, 40 years ago, I mean, testing is so essential, and that assessment, this allows teachers to really kind of target, I think, you know, what they need to teach students and how they need to advance their classroom and individual students that need that little extra attention and exactly what attention they need. I just think that's fantastic.
Yeah, I think, go ahead, you're going to comment? Oh.
Well, we've had teachers, every teacher that uses the program tells us that it saves them so much time, and literally have told us it saves them about 400 hours per year in assessing and managing data, tracking and reporting, etc. Those 400 hours can be spent on one-to-one instruction as opposed to assessing and checking boxes and trying to make sense of all of it.
Well, this eliminates a lot of challenges, right, that we've seen on the front end, how to educate children. If you have an extra 400 hours to do that, you're focused now on what should be, which is educating that child so that they have a great start and stay ahead. Because that we've seen, you start out poor, it doesn't get better as the years go on unless you correct it somehow.
Yeah, and one dynamic that we have to understand too is class sizes have increased.
Sure.
So imagine this, 35-year-olds
Right.
in one classroom with one teacher. How on earth can that teacher be effective without some sort of tool or some sort of innovation?
Right.
You know, in business, when we're given challenges where you've got to do more with less, we create tools, we create innovations, we create ways to get through it. We're trying to provide that same sort of environment for education.
Yeah, great segue. You created this. What were the challenges that you saw that when you looked at this said, man, there's got to be a better way here. How do we do this?
Yeah, it's really class size was a big issue because you have to know where every single student is and what they need in order to, individualize instruction. And it's really, class size is one of them,
Right.
lack of resources. Kindergarten until recently wasn't even required, grade level. So it's not gotten a lot of attention and a lot of innovation and a lot of resources to innovate in that space.
Yeah, and I think, Brian, it's interesting. Our expectations of kindergarten students, I mean, they're learning things today, as we talked about in the opening, that maybe we would not have expected them to learn until 3rd or 4th grade. Technology like this, I think, helps advance them. I think our expectations are pretty high that we expect our kindergarten students to be able to read pretty well now.
And I think it's the building block to creating, what we talk about at the Chamber is kind of workforce ready students, and you really have to start at that early age because it all builds on everything else. And with my own kids, I see it. My son, I'm helping him with his multiplication tables. He's in 3rd grade, and I'm saying to him, this might be one of the most important things you ever learn in school. Not to put any pressure on you, but because you will continue to use this for the rest of your life. And if you understand this, it's going to work so that you can understand other aspects of math and that type of thing. But the reading is where it all starts. Like Greg said, it's that tide. I mean, if children can't read, they're not going to learn math or science. They're probably not going to learn even social skills in many respects. So
I've seen your math skills. Hopefully your wife's a lot better, by the way. So, what's interesting, University of North Carolina, Mish, did a study. I thought this was fantastic. Those kids that are engaged in kindergarten programs and learn through kindergarten programs, 80% of those kids go on to earn roughly $30,000 a year more by the age of 40, less likely to have been convicted of any crime, so they're going into society making a benefit there, and they go in to attain post K-12 education of some sort. So critical on the front end here to get kindergartners off to a great start.
Yeah, like I was saying at first, it's the beginning of their educational journey. So if you can give kids the fundamental tools, by the time they get to 1st grade, they're not struggling to try and get the dynamics of how to read. And so that's the problem. They're going to have weights around their ankles the rest of their educational experience. And those kids that kind of get through the cracks, they're the ones that perhaps become the class clowns. Maybe they're the ones that just don't want to, because they have to find some way to engage.
Sure.
And if it's not educationally, they're going to find a different way. So absolutely, kids that are engaged at kindergarten and are doing well and can get past that first element of reading and all of those things in kindergarten, they can have more ability to thrive.
Well, I think you had mentioned it really can be deflating for a student if they're way behind already. By the time they get to 3rd and 4th grade, they've pretty much given up or they've lost hope. So to get them off to a good start, very critical.
It's absolutely critical because once they start pulling students out for intervention, which they need, it's hard for them to catch up if they're missing the on-grade level content while they're pulled out of the classroom for the remediation. And they never quite get there, and then their self-esteem suffers. It's really challenging, and it costs an enormous amount of money.
Absolutely,
to correct that.
Point. Yeah, absolutely. What has been the response? You're all over the world, basically. You've sold this all over the world. So what are some of the feedback, comments you've gotten on this system from both teachers, maybe parents as well?
Yeah, parents love ESGI because they're getting specific information back about what they can do to help their child in school, and they're not used to that, so they're excited about that. Teachers, we have a 92% renewal rate of our software, so the response has been amazing.
When you go to a conference and Greg is there, this is a true story. Teachers will line up to hug the founder, and they'll say, "Oh my gosh, you've changed my life because of you, because of the time is one of the most valuable resources. It's the most valuable commodity, and if you offer a teacher time back, They stand in line and hug the founder.
Yeah, when you talked about the extra hours.
Right. They want to teach. They want to do all of the things that are developmentally appropriate for students. They don't want to have to teach to the Common Core standards and worry about that. They want that to be part of the natural flow of the curriculum that they're delivering.
You know, and you made a point, or Amish made a point about kind of what else it does, giving kids some self-esteem, something to build on. And I think one of the things with the South Bend Education Foundation work to put in a program that's also in Penn schools, and at Hayes School in particular, I remember the principal talking to us about this intensive reading program, and he said this program we started in our discipline calls to the office just plummeted. And that's the other thing too, is you talk about kind of you build on things, you give teachers more time. The other thing you do is you may eliminate some disruptions in class, so everybody is getting a higher level of teaching.
I thought it was interesting. Temple University out of Philadelphia, did an interesting study here, said for every dollar invested in kindergarten, it'll yield $7 in return. There's other studies that say it could be as upward to $16 in return back into where that student lives and where you live and those kind of things. There's a big buyback here, I think.
There is, and that's where there's irony, because let's look at the numbers. Let's look at the business case here.
Sure.
There's roughly 50 million kids enrolled in school from K through 12. So when you're looking at innovations and business opportunities, most of these companies are going to invest in the K through 12 program. There's roughly 250,000 kindergarten kids.
Wow.
So when you look at it from teachers, so when you look at it from a business opportunity standpoint, who wants to spend a lot of money and time focusing on the 250,000 teachers?
Exactly right.
They want to build the K-12 opportunity.
Absolutely.
We're looking at the payback and say, you know what? Yes, spend money, spend time, and spend focus on kindergarten, not just because of the market size, not just because of the business case, because it's the right thing to do so we can provide teachers the right tools to be successful.
Yeah, what are those metrics that we're going to see? We've talked about instant data. What are some of the metrics that come out of this that you're able to look at and say, this is where we need to correct some things?
Yeah, the item analysis I mentioned before, you have a ranking of the least known to the most known letters or sight words or sounds, and you can focus on the least known. Also groups, you can create groups in the program and understand if you're working with a small group of students, what should you be focusing on with this group. Ranking, you can rank your class by all of the different areas to see who's met the benchmark and who has not, and the parent letter that tells the parents exactly what to work on at home.
I know you were going to comment on Amisha's thoughts. Also, wanted to get your comments on Greg's as well.
Well, it's just exponential that the gains that I believe are seen at that level when teachers have the right tools.
Sure.
And it's the fear factor, I think, in a lot of cases, as I've mentioned at the beginning. If a teacher hasn't used technology, it's not that they're incapable of it.
Right.
It's just the unfamiliar. But once they see how simple ESGI is, I think that's the magic of the program.
Sure.
It was designed for veteran teachers who have not spent a lot of time in the computer or used technology in an instructional way. And it's so intuitive and easy to use that we don't even sell professional development, which after 20 years in this industry and working for some very large education publishers, that's a big deal.
So can there be updates to this system consistently that you look at as technology increases?